Hey there, welcome to another Voice Matters Thursday Live. Today I'm talking about why sensitive souls make great leaders and speakers. We think that we don't. Most of us don't. Society thinks that sensitive people, highly sensitive people, empaths do not make great leaders and speakers kind of as a whole. And yet we do. Um, we are sensitive to emotions. We can feel the vibe in the room. We can sense where the people that we are leading or speaking to are emotionally and sometimes energetically and physically. When I was 18 years old, I was asked, told I had to give a speech in order to collect a scholarship, an academic award, an award for academic excellence. Um, didn't really feel fair. I didn't really want to. It was supposed to be an award for work that I had already done, and yet in order to collect it, I had to go give a speech. And I had entered with some kind of piece of poetry that I had written. I had actually written it kind of riffing off of something that we had read in a class. I didn't even think that it mattered that much. And yet it was something that had come from me, come from my heart and soul. So there I was in a banquet style room, standing up at a podium at 18 years old, looking out at the people. And I read some kind of thank you to the distinguished blah, blah, blah for the award. And then I shared the poem. And as I started sharing the poem, I felt vulnerable. I felt my hands and my butt and my feet beginning to tremor. I felt emotions rising up within me. I was on the verge of tears. And then eventually I was even tearing and crying myself. I was mortified when it happened. All sorts of inner critics and soul suckers, even though I didn't call them that at the time, were going crazy telling me how horrible that was. I was convinced that they were going to decide that it was so bad they weren't going to give me the money after all. I tried to make a beeline back to my seat so that they could continue with the rest of their dinner. And one by one, all of these people, adults mostly at the time, were coming up to me and saying, "That was so moving. That was beautiful. That was so touching. I was very moved by your reading." I was in shock and I did not make sense of that at the time. And yet I've never forgotten it. Fast forward 20, 25 years, I was teaching at Foothill College, and my class happened right after they had to make an announcement that the budget for the program was being cut. And I could feel, it was the first day of the program, and I could feel the students in the program who were all going to take my class immediately following this announcement. I could feel their disappointment. I could feel their grief. I could feel their worry about having changed their lives in some cases to come to this program, and this fear that it wasn't going to be what they had expected, this grief about parts that were not going to be what they had expected. And instead of trying to pretend that didn't happen or suppress the feelings that I was feeling coming from them, physical, emotional, and energetic, I leaned into it. And I tossed out the plan that I had for the class that day, or I tossed out the beginning of the plan that I had for the class, and I leaned into where they were. And I started teaching by talking about what had just happened and brought up soul suckers and these inner critic disaster trippers, and we did exercises about the soul suckers, and my entire demeanor was very different than it would have been if I couldn't sense where they were emotionally. By the end of the day, on that experience, the students were coming up to me saying, I was really worried at the beginning of the class, but now I have hope. I was really crushed at the beginning of class, but now I feel alive and I feel empowered. Thank you so much. The difference between those two experiences in both, when I was 18 years old and 25 years later, I was still an empath, a highly sensitive person, a sensitive soul in both experiences. In the first experience, I didn't know that. And I tried to suppress and fight against what was happening to me unsuccessfully, which is part of why the people at the end of that experience actually said that they felt moved. I didn't have mastery of speaking, of performing, of leading. I bought into the soul sucking thoughts that I was too much, that I was too emotional, that I was too sensitive, and I was trying to suppress it. So even though it went well, I bet if I could go back and read it now, it would go even better. In the experience teaching at Foothill College, I felt all of the sensations, I felt all of the emotions, and I didn't try to suppress them. I didn't allow the soul suckers to tell me that I was wrong or bad or flawed for having them. And because I leaned into them and honored them rather than ignoring them, I could feel the vibe in the room. My students, because I was honoring where they were during the starting point, felt seen and heard and understood in a way that they would not have felt if I couldn't sense where they were and then actually create from where they were rather than trying to put on a happy face and just move forward and try to be joyful. It's a very different thing. When we as sensitive souls can do that, we can take people on a journey with us. When we're leaders who are speaking, that might be a journey from grief to transformation. When we're leaders leading a movement, who knows where we can go? I know we can go much farther if we honor all of the things that we are sensing and create from them. This is really learning to lean into our sensitiveness, our sensitive souls, to become a discerning empath or a mindful sensitive soul, whatever we want to call it. We unleash the great speaker and the great leader within when we learn how to be more mindful and more discerning, separating out the sensations from the tricks that our inner critics and our soul suckers play on us in interpreting all of that sensation. If you've had an experience like I had when I was 18 of feeling like your body is betraying you, share about it with me. I have a Facebook group called the Stand in Your Power Tribe with Lori Smith. Feel free to come over there and chat with us or comment back on this video. And if you've had moments in the past that felt amazing and full of flow, and you're realizing now that it's part because you leaned into your sensitivity, share about that as well. And I will be back here next week for another Voice Matters Thursday Live. Bye-bye.